Good afternoon. This is your host for Dying a Detroit Lions fan, Rick Yacklin, coming to you and trying something a little different. I'm trying to record both this videocast and a podcast at the same time so I can try to see if I can merge it together here. So this is going to be a trial and error. Hopefully it works. What I'm coming to you today with, and today's Friday, so that makes it the 3rd of April. This afternoon, I happened to be listening to the Hurd, our Colin Coward Show on FS1, the Hurd Show, and Nick Wright was filling in for him. And Nick Wright, as well as there's an article in the Boston Globe or Boston Herald, one of the papers there, from one of the sports writers, posed the question, should New England go after Tua for a quarterback? I mean, to begin with, it sounds like stupid. How are they going to go from 23rd in order to try to jump up into the top 5? And particularly, what they're citing is number 3. The reason being is that Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia are there. Now, this kind of started off as a little bit of a joke when I first heard it in my mind, but the more I listened to it, and the more I thought about it, and the more research I did into this, I can almost see this happening. Let me go through and tell you a little bit about what the article, or what Nick Wright was talking about, and then some of the research that I did in order to see if this might be able to be pulled off in any way. Nick Wright talks about the fact that the Lions have become very comfortable trade partners with New England since Bob Quinn has came to Detroit. And I found that to be very true. They've actually made 6 trades together between New England and Detroit since Bob Quinn has become general manager. Don't really want to say that that's really like a real bad thing, but when I look at it, who has Detroit ever traded for New England with and got anything of any value? And one of their trades that I remember was only for a draft pick. So I don't really know. I can see where Bill Belichick is actually turning around and getting an opportunity to cherry pick some players away from Detroit. And that's kind of what I'm leaning in that direction. But you go and you start talking about what kind of draft capital would New England be able to pose to Detroit. Well, New England does have 11 picks in the 2020 draft, whereas Detroit has a total of 9. Is that right? 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 9. All right. So they do have some draft picks. The problem is, I don't see where they have anything of any value to give to Detroit, whereas if Detroit were to be in a situation with Miami, Miami's got 3 first-round picks, and you could almost guarantee you're not only going to get their 5th, but you can probably at least get another first round out of them. Let's run through what New England has to offer. They've got a first-round pick, which is actually number 23 in the draft. They have 2 third-round picks, none in the second, third round. Picks 98 and 100, a 4th round pick at 125, a 5th round pick at 172. They have 4 6th round picks, and this is where it starts getting interesting: 195, 204, 212, 213. And they have 2 7th round picks, 220 and 241. If you turn around and look at the Lions, what we have is, of course, we've got the first pick, or the 3rd pick in the first round, 35th pick in the second. We have 2 third-round picks, 67 and 85, a 4th round pick at 109, 2 5th rounders, 149 and 166, the 6th round at 186, and 7th round at 235. This is where I can kind of see there might be a little bit of a game being played with Patricia, Quinn, Detroit management, and Belichick. Now, if the sources from what I'm hearing are right, and if the breadcrumbs kind of put together, New England would be great to turn around and jump and grab Tua if they could get their hands on him. They like Stidham, who they already have at quarterback, but they brought Brian Hoyer back. Hoyer would actually be he's the only one with experience, okay, NFL tenure on the New England roster right now when it comes to a quarterback. So he could actually fill in for a little bit and let Tua learn as well as Stidham if Stidham's not ready. Now, I know they say that Stidham played well in the preseason last year, but that doesn't really, jump into this year. We don't know what's going to happen with him there. But what makes this all the more interesting is also mentioned into the fact in the conversation that Nick Wright was having is the fact that Quinn and Patricia are on like the hottest of hot seats. It's well publicized in NFL publications that they are tied to the hip. Bob Quinn's contract was restructured so it matched Matt Patricia's, and their contracts run through 2022. So we got 20, and then there's 2 years after that. Mrs. Ford already gave him an ultimatum last year after the season saying there better be markedly improvement. I tried finding out what coaching salaries and GM salaries are, and unfortunately it's hard to get any solid ground on that because generally executive salaries are not released. They're not like players. But if we go back to coaches, and one of the things I did find is generally GMs are thought to be paid between $1 and $3 million per year. So who knows, if that's accurate or not. And with Mrs. Ford hiring that outside consultation from Ernie, whatever his name was, and getting recommended so highly Bob Quinn, who knows what she paid him? I really don't know. But when it goes to coaches, out of all the coaches listed, and there was a number of them that are, but the lowest coach that was receiving, that's listed, was $4 million a year, and that was Jay Gruden with the Washington Redskins last year. So who knows? I mean, where it really stands at something like that. The highest paid coach I saw was Pete Carroll at $11 million a year, and then of course John Gruden at $10 million a year, with his basic lifetime contract of 10 years with the Oakland Raiders. So, with that thought being put out by Mrs. Ford that there better be market improvement, Nick Wright comes up with this idea that knowing that they are on shaky ground, would they make a friendly buddy-buddy deal with Bill Belichick, giving away that third pick with an under-the-table conversation or somewhat of a guarantee that if Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn are let go by the Lions, that they could resurface with homes back in New England. It's a very, very interesting topic. Let's take a pause for a second for those that are doing the podcast. I'll be right back. And for us on the video, we're going to continue right along. podcast company, our podcast listeners are now coming back in. Thank you for the short break. For us that are on the VideoCast, let's continue where we were at, and the idea of Quinn and Patricia possibly being guaranteed jobs to go back to New England. One of the things that Nick Wright had a source tell him that God knows who the source is, but source told him that Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn Matt Patricia and Bill Belichick are still very close. In fact, so close that they vacation together. So, number one, I don't understand, if they're that close, how Patricia hasn't been able to, at least through osmosis, pick up education as to how to coach a team. After coaching for them, and if they're buddies, you would think that stupid fat ass would have figured out something in regards to how to actually coach a football team, rather than being a complete egotistical asshole and having not a fucking clue when he's on the sideline paying attention to a game. All I can think of is it reiterates the fact, in my opinion, that all Patricia ever did with Quinn, all Patricia ever did with Belichick was suck his ass in order to stay employed and do what Bill told him to do. I do not have any faith that Matt Patricia was a defensive coordinator in more ways than title only. I do believe that Bill Belichick ran that team, had the game plans, and he put game plans into effect, and all Patricia did was substitute the players that Bill told him to substitute when he told him to substitute. So that's a pretty interesting type of thing. We are sitting roughly just shy of 3 weeks away from the draft. There's a lot of talk going up with Tua having his other medical evaluation yesterday. Everything looks great. They're sending out all the MRIs, all the doctor notes and stuff to everybody, because the only team that's been able to do anything talking to a doctor with them is the Tennessee Titans, because they're based out of Nashville, and that's where Tua's working out right now, is in Nashville. Somebody else made mention today, I think it was Dan Orlovsky on Get Up this morning, mentioned that if he were the Miami Dolphins, Miami and Tennessee is only 900 and some miles apart, even though they're trying to discourage flying or whatever. Orlovsky suggested the fact, if I'm really interested in Tua and I want to talk to him and I want to turn around and talk to medical doctors, whatever the case may be, I'm getting my ass in the car and I'm making the 900-mile trip, 900 miles plus, to Nashville, so that I can get a chance to talk to this kid rather than just doing it on the phone. Makes a lot of sense. So Tua, it becomes hot property. And if we see a situation come up in the next 3 weeks, leading up to draft night on Thursday, the 26th, is it, I believe? And if Detroit makes that trade with them and trades down to 23, picking up that 23rd pick in the first round, and even if they were to turn around and pick up a score of 4 or 5 more draft picks, they've got 9, giving them 13, big deal. What do you think Bill's going to give him? He's not going to give up his 3rd rounds. I can't see that, because he gives away 1st. He has no 2nd. By the time you get to the 4th at 125, what do you got? And the only thing I can see that would really make any sense would be if we go the 6th round. The Patriots have 195, 204, 212, 213. The Lions have got 186. I wonder if the Lions would be able to turn around and look at the fact of taking picks 204 and 212 to go with their 182. Would give them 3 6th round picks, but where are they going to find? I don't have any confidence in Bob Quinn. since he's been here as a general manager, he has not shown me talent coming into this team beyond maybe a couple here and there. Um, I don't see it. But the other thing that I do see is the fact that if Quinn and Patricia know this team is not going to perform for them, and I do believe that's kind of the case right now. I think that's why they're bringing in the 3 other New England people this year, is they're going to try and see if they can get through those guys to get more Lions to buy in. But I don't think the Lions are buying into Matt Patricia. I don't think they'll play for him. I don't think they haven't played for him in 3 years or in 2 years. So it's quite obvious that, they're not all on the same page there. And I would just be kind of surprised if the potential's there for that trade is what I'm trying to say. And if that's the case, this has got to be the biggest conspiracy theory that Detroit has ever heard. And if it were to come to pass, and somehow this went down, since they're not going to be able to be in the Lions facility or in their offices, and none of the teams are going to be able to do that. But if Patricia pulls this off, and Mrs. Ford doesn't know about it going in, I would hope that bitch would just come unglued and flat out fire both Patricia and Quinn immediately. The year's fucked anyways. I do not look for success from the Detroit Lions this year as much as I wish they would. Stafford's not getting any younger. He's the best player that they've got on the roster right now, other than Kenny Galladay. I just don't see it. And if it was me, and if that trade goes down, they're gone. And I also, I don't care how it comes out, I don't see the Lions winning before more than 4 or 5 games this year. And if is one game going to be enough that's going to say that Mrs. Ford's going to say that, hey, she approves? Or are her dumb bitch daughters finally going to turn around and say, hey, what the fuck, we got to let them go? The Lions fans are about fed up. You got rid of a guy that went to had 3 winning seasons in 4, and Caldwell, and you fire him with a 9-7 record. Yes, they lost the playoff game, but stating the fact that it was unacceptable, the Lions had to get better. And ever since that, Bob Quinn, in his 2nd year, has stuck it to Martha Ford, bringing in Bob Patricia. All they've done is plummet. So, I don't know, folks. I'm really frustrated with the Detroit Lions. And I hope that you guys will share some feedback on what you think about this. I mean, it's a story that was publicized, and I did see the Boston Herald thing when I was looking up research, okay, where the writer definitely laid this out. And Nick Wright on the national radio show for Colin Coward, the Hurd on Fox Sports 1 this afternoon between 12 and 3, brought this out, and it was quite a long discussion. It actually went into 2 different segments where they talked about this. So it's getting a little bit of play. And who knows? I mean, people lie like hell in NFL right now this time of year before the draft anyways. But it makes kind of interesting. But leave me a message. Leave a message on either the podcast end. You can click the little message button when hearing this. Leave a voicemail and I'll get it. I'll respond to you as soon as I can. If you watch it, the VideoCast on YouTube, you can write a comment in the section or the comment section down below the video itself, and I will answer your questions there. And if you have anything specific that I want to bring up, I'll mention your name and stuff into the next VideoCast that I do. So, I know it's kind of a quickie type of thing. I hope this works with what I'm trying to do with the podcast and the VideoCast at the same time. But we will come back soon. I'm going to be scouring a little bit more of the NFL landscape over the weekend, trying to see if I hear anything else. Things have been kind of quiet this week other than the news today, and we'll go from there. So, Rick Yacklin here again, getting ready to sign off for Dying a Detroit Lions fan, and we will see you soon. Please take care, stay safe, stay inside. Let's get over this pandemic together so we can get back to having sports in the real world. Have a great day, folks. Take care.